standards. And it's not just happening here at the Bomber, it's also happening live on Facebook. And you can actually follow the conversation on Twitter as well. We are ready to start. And this is our countdown. And indeed, we are moving from resilience to recovery. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome Day, and we are set to start, wherever you're watching us from. And I'd kindly request for those who are in here to let us all stand for our Kenya national anthem. Kindly call upon Madam Evelyn to come forward to give us the opening prayer, please.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we come before you this morning. Want to thank you for the gift of life that you have given us. Want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to come together and celebrate this year's World Standards Day. We pray that in our deliberations, you shall be with us, guide us, lift our organizations much higher so that we can always be with us. Bless us and be with us. In Jesus' name I pray and believe.
Thank you so much. While you're still, we want to celebrate the fact that we're alive today, and it's a great opportunity for us to make a difference. Kindly grab your phone, please. We're keeping social distance. We're maintaining standards as we talk about World Standards Day. So kindly grab your phone, and I'd kindly request from where you are, you can actually take what is called a selfie. Absolutely. We want to tell the world that we are and we are committed to standards. Ladies and gentlemen, take that photo, make it memorable. Take that selfie. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. All right. Asante sana. Once you take that photo, please post it. We want to talk about World Standards KE. World Standards KE. That is the hashtag on Twitter. The conversation is already on Facebook. We are live, so make sure you do that. Once you do that, you can have your seat. Asanteni sana. Thank you so much. We celebrate all dignitaries. As President, many thanks for coming as well. Now, while you're still on your phone, very quickly, don't move away from it. Don't move away from it. This is what I want you to do very quickly. Look at on your phone. Focus on your phone. Focus on your phone. We're going to Mentimeter. I want you to go to, it's on your screen, just go to www. That's www.menti.com. It's on the screen. For those who are watching, same. www.menti.com. Once you are in there, it will ask you for a code. This is for everybody. This is for everyone. So go to www.ment.com and get in there. It will ask you for a code. The code is 4493869. Once you're in, please click on the thumbs up. Click on the thumbs up. Fantastic. I can see people are following the standards this morning. 6 people are already in, 10 people and counting. Fantastic. You don't want to miss to be part of this conversation. Go ahead, go ahead. 14 people are in. Oh, this is good. This is good. 14 people are already in. www.menti.com and the code is 4493869. This is for everyone who is here, and of course, if you are watching via Facebook or you're on Zoom, please go to www.menti.com, use the code 4493869. This is good. We have 25 people already on board, 27. Let's get to 30, 29. This is good. www.menti.com, code 4493869. Fantastic. And it's moving on. Keep on, keep on, keep on. Look at your phone, look at your phone, look at your phone. Tell us about yourself. We want to find out, number 1, your name. One name. For instance, Mwakazi. Number 2, where are you from? Nairobi, Kenya. Number 3, what is your standard? I keep my word. We're talking about standards. We want to find out what is your standard. Number 1, your name, where you're coming from, and your standard. For instance, fantastic. Elsie, Veronica, Martin, Ronald, Kimtai. This is good. Now I need you to put your name, where you're from, and your standard. Nairobi, Kenya, Nyakango, Martin, Lucy, Elsie, Jebet. Fantastic. All these people are inside here already. This is good. Ricky, Nairobi, Kenya. I keep my word. That is it. Aha. Dr. Amojani, thank you so much. From ASO is here already. Asante sana. Joel from Nairobi, Kenya. Fantastic. Sholei, Nairobi, Kenya. Do everything with excellence and success will follow. Franklin Mutuma Ngutiku. Gerald Musyoka from Nairobi, Kenya. Food Standards and SBS. Fantastic. Excellent. Marion from Nairobi. My standard is excellence. I love that. We are talking about standards. Protecting the planet with standards. The same standards you have for yourself. We have the same standards for the planet. We will definitely save humanity for generations to come. Njoroge from Nairobi, professionalism. Joseph from Nairobi, keep time, yes, yes. Patrick, UNEP, sustainability, promotion. I love standards. Geoffrey Nyerere, fantastic. Oh my God, this is good. 79 people are following us already. This is good. I keep time, I deal with accreditation, protecting the planet with standard, fantastic country, SBS advisor. Evanson from Nairobi. Oh, Andrew Edewa, trademark East Africa. You're here already. Thank you. Standards and beyond. Fantastic. Dr. Rotich from Nairobi, Kenya. Fantastic. Oh, you don't want to miss this. Matthew from Nairobi, energy efficiency. Kenya handcraft and creative product standards. Minimum energy performance. This is good. Keep the conversation coming. If you're watching on Facebook Live, keep the conversation coming. If you're checking on Twitter, keep the conversation coming. If you're on Zoom, keep the conversation coming. And of course, if you're here, we celebrate your presence in a big way. Why are we here? We want to protect the planet. Somebody said, without standards, we don't have a planet. We can have that plan B, but we can never have planet B. As we start, just for you to note, this is the situation of our planet. Volume, please. Volume, please. This is the situation.
We can now all see the consequences of that careless pollution of the past. And indeed, experts are predicting even more dire consequences if we do not act now.
7 million people, or close to 7 million people, are dying from air pollution on planet Earth every year. If we include all sorts of pollution, we estimate 13 million people die from pollution. This makes pollution the biggest killer on the planet, and we need to defeat it.
600,000 children annually suffer brain damage due to the toxic effects of lead in paint. 58% of diarrheal diseases, very often children, is due to the lack of access to safe water and sanitation. Our seas already contain 500 dead zones with too little oxygen to support marine life. Over 80% of the world's wastewater is released into the environment without treatment, and close to 50 million tons of e-waste are produced every year.
Our country, Kenya, will remain steadfast in its commitment to promoting its work on the forest economy.
And that we need to start looking at different sort of businesses that really take care of our environment, businesses that really take care of the well-being of our people, and not just profits.
We, as Kenya, will increase our funding to the organization in order to support its programs. I would also like to encourage other member states to consider raising their voluntary contributions to help the United Nations Environmental Programme discharge its mandate effectively.
So our commitment today, is to adhere to the standards set and to introduce that conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd kindly request our hands together for Madam S. Ngari, who is the Director, Standards Development and Trade, Kenya Bureau of Standards. Big round of applause, please.
our permanent secretary, State Department of Industrialization, Dr. Owino, the chair of the National Standards Council, Engineer Benan Gore, the ISO president, Andy Jeroge, Secretary General also, our MD, Kenya Bureau of Standards, the CEO, KENAS, all the CEOs represented here, all our development partners, all the invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, and those who are following us virtually, good morning. Today, as we celebrate the World Standards Day, we would want to briefly focus on the standards. What are the standards all about? Very briefly. Standards give requirements, rules, and guidelines for a product, process, or a service. And what is a standard exactly? We are just talking about standards, but what is it? It is a document established by consensus and approved by a recognized body that provides for common and repeated use. Rules, guidelines, or characteristics or activities, or their results aimed at the achievement of optimum degree of a given context. When you talk of standardization, is the whole process of the development, which encompasses from the initiation of the process, the development of the standards, and the application of the same standards. So it is based on scientific research and application, the experience that we get as we apply these standards. We have a hierarchy of different standards, and the highest is international standards. These are the standards that we use that help us to trade globally. We have the regional standards. These are the ISO, the EAC standards. And we also have the national standards. These are the Kenyan standards. And the lower of the hierarchy is the company standards. So when you don't have all the other standards, then you go to the company standards. The standards development process has 5 stages. The first one is the proposal stage. This is where we receive requests for standardization projects, and then we receive them at Kenya Bureau of Standards. Then once we receive, they are taken through the committee, the technical committee. Today we are celebrating those people, the experts who have been participating in the technical committees to develop standards. After that, we have the public review stage. This is the stage where everyone is involved. So we give our comments to the draft standards. Then we go to the balloting stage. This is the stage where the committee ballots on the standard, and then the approval stage, where the National Standards Council is involved to approve the standard, and then it's published. The structure that we have at Kenya Bureau of Standards for the whole process is the Standards Project Committee. This is the committee that looks at the proposals which you have given. The Standards Project Committee is composed of managers within the Standards Department. Then the Technical Committee that is composed of all the stakeholders from the industry and from the academia will come to the stakeholder. Then we have the Standards Appraisal Committee. This is the committee of the board that looks at the standards which have been developed at the technical committee level, and then proposes for the National Standard Council for approval. Then once approval is done, gazettement of the standards is done, and these are the standards which we say they are published by Kenya Bureau of Standards. When you are doing standardization, we follow 6 principles globally. These are the principles which are followed by all the standardization bodies. The first one is consensus. There has to be a general agreement characterized by absence of sustained opposition. This does not necessarily mean that all have to agree, but there has to be absence of sustained opposition to substantial issues. Then we have impartiality. This is where all contributions are considered at the technical committee level. Then we have coherence, which ensures that standards are not overlapping on each other. Then we have relevance and effectiveness to make sure that the standards that we develop are relevant for the market. We have transparency. All the documentation that are used for standards development are available to the public if you want to. Then we have openness. At the moment, we normally advertise for technical committee membership. You can apply through our website to be a member of the technical committee. And then it's taken through the proper approvals. Today we are celebrating the various stakeholders who participate and the experts who participate in standards development, and they are composed of that group of people. I'm sure you're following us on our Facebook today. So today we celebrate you. These are all the stakeholders that are involved in standards development. So far we have developed a number of standards as Kenya Bureau of Standards. We have 9,510 published standards, out of which 53.5% are adopted international standards. We try as much as possible to adopt international standards because they help in trade. Then we have about 29.6%, which are the Kenyan standards. That is very important to note. In standardization work, currently at Kenya Bureau of Standards, we have 194 national technical committees. Kenya also participates in international standardization activities to ensure that the national interests are taken care of and that global market access for our products. We also participate in 81 ISO technical committees as P membership and 156 ISO technical committees as O members. That's observer members. We also hold the leadership positions in the ISO technical committees. So we are chair and vice chair in 2 ISO technical committees. We hold convenership for 2 ISO working groups, and we are secretariat in 1 ISO technical committee and 1 ISO working group. Kenya also participates in continental harmonization activities under the ALSO. That is, we are currently active in 19 active ALSO technical committees. Kenya also hosts the ALSO Secretariat headquarters. And this harmonization of continental standards help the country, it normally positions the country to benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. This will help in trade across Africa. So I welcome you for World Standards Day 2020 with the theme of protecting the planet with standards. Welcome.
Thank you so much. At least now we know why we are here. We have personal standards, but when we talk about protecting the planet with standards, we are actually referring to standards that have been developed by key professional stakeholders. There has been a validated process and, of course, notable principles that guide the same process. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker. Big round of applause to Dr. Andrew Edewa, Trademark East Africa Director, Standards, SBS Measure. Ibusana.
Chief guest, our PSA for standards, for State Department for Industries, Dr. Owino, the Chair, National Standards Council, Engineer Gore, ISO President who is with us, Eddie Yeroge, CEOs, distinguished guests, those ones who are watching us virtually, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Edewa, and I work with Trademark East Africa. Trademark East Africa is the largest trade facilitation organization in the world today, and our core work is supporting or facilitating trade in the region to ensure that the standards or other aspects that could be a problem in trade are addressed. So at Trademark East Africa, we have a special program that deals with standards and sanitary and phytosanitary measures. And that's what I'm in charge of. And the purpose of this program is to change the script and to make standards to be seen as prerequisites or preconditions to facilitate trade rather than seeing them as barriers. And therefore, we see standards as very important to increase industrial performance and efficiency. Therefore, we focus a lot on supporting small and medium enterprises and the private sector at large in making sure that they are able to implement these requisite standards in order to open up markets. Therefore, standards also, in our end, we see them as languages of trade, and we are using them more and more to allow countries to be able to participate in trade by harmonizing them across the regions where trade is taking place. Finally, we know that standards are necessary to allow for the management of the environment, especially in terms of efficient resource management within the industrial production systems, primary production systems, but also in making sure that the waste is properly managed once these systems have been implemented. So that's what we do in our standards program. And for you, the benefit of the audience, our support is right from the continental level. We support the African Union to implement the African free trade area. And we are also focusing on supporting a number of regional economic communities in Africa. This includes the East African Community, COMESA, IGAD, for our case here in Kenya. And in our work there, it's about harmonizing the standards and making sure that we have mutual recognition systems that allow for effective production and trade for our goods which cross the borders. Lastly, within the country context, we support both government and private sector institutions that are responsible for standardization, for metrology, and for accreditation, and all of the conformity assessment systems within the country. We have the scope of work to support this through infrastructure development, but also systems that support their work. And we work with our partners. ISO, we have partnership with ISO and with ARSO and many of the national stakeholders. Thank you very much. On this day, we will be happy to see that standards really are taken as a very useful tool in managing the efficiency of our supply chains and managing the waste. I want to stop here in view of time. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So much indeed. It's very clear. Standards are the language of trade. We must look at them as very important. In the next 3 minutes as well, I'd kindly request that we put our hands together in appreciation to our next speaker, and that is Mr. Maina Karuiru, National Project Coordinator, Markup Kenya Project, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO.
The chief guest, all dignitaries present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Maina Karuiru. I'm the National Project Coordinator for Markup Kenya Project, and I'm here to celebrate the World Standard Day with KEBS, as well as all other Kenyans who are watching us within and outside the country. I want to give you a small brief about MACA project and our relationship with Kenya Bureau of Standards and what we are doing with them. MACA project basically means Market Access Upgrade Program. It's a regional project of ESC funded by the EU and managed by GIZ and ITC for the other ESC region countries. And MACA Kenya is implemented by UNIDO, United Industrial Development Organization. The project period is 4 years, basically from 2019 all the way to 2022. And the Ministry of Industry Trade Cooperatives, the focal point, and we are working with 12 counties. So the project purpose for MACA project in Kenya is to contribute to economic development of Kenya by increasing value of both extra and intra-regional agricultural exports in selected horticultural subsectors, namely green beans imports, mangoes, passion fruits, chilies, herb spices, and nuts. And the project aims to address the challenges that hinder market access. We know that Kenya exports a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, but we also get some challenges, and the project aims to address these challenges 2 ways. One, improving institutional and regulatory framework for those institutions that are involved in conformity assessments, so that they can be able to give better services. And these institutions, this is one of them. We also have cafes, we have HCD, we have Kenas, and we have AFA. And the second one is increasing revenue and market access for Kenya smallholder producers and SMEs who are involved in the export industry. So what is the relationship between what we are doing and the standards? Number one, it has been said that standards help us to get a better world. We know that without standards, there's trouble. We need to live in an environment that is healthy. We need to produce safe and quality food. And we also need to ensure that we live in a sustainable world with the activities that we do in the agricultural and export variation from all the way from the farm to the market. So in terms of standards, we have some work we are doing with KEBS, and we've already started. And one of them is ensuring that we are trying to increase efficiency of the testing laboratories by doing capacity building, as well as ensuring that some of the challenges they're having, like getting certified reference materials, proficient testing, and also trainings on ISO 17025, that we are going to support them with capacity building and technical assistance. We are also working with KEBS. We've developed the KS 1758. That's a standard for good agricultural practices for small-scale growers and exporters for local and export market. We are going to help them in terms of distribution and training on that. Lastly, we all know that without standards, we have nothing to live for. And we are grateful and happy to be part of this family. And my joy is that everybody out there watching now realizes the importance of standards in making us live in a sustainable environment. Having a sustainable environment leads to healthy lifestyles, and lifestyles leads to happy living. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much indeed. Market Access Upgrade Program, addressing challenges for better services. Of course, making it clear that standards a better world. And I love this parting shot: without standards, we have nothing to live for. And so today we are saying, with standards, we will protect the planet. Our next speaker in the next 3 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome Director General, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Mr. Robert Pavel Oimeke. Karibu sana.
chief guest, the representative of the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Industrialization, Dr. Francis Owino, the ISO President, Ms. Edin Juboge, the Secretary General, African Organization for Standardization, ARSO, Dr. Nsengimana, the Chairman, National Standards Council, Bernard Ngorai, the Managing Director, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Giraine, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to you. My name is Dr. Frederick Nyang. Please accept the apologies of the Director General of IPRA, Mr. Pavel Oimeke, who is unable to be with us here this morning. However, he asked me to read his remark, which I will now do. Start the Bureau of Standards for organizing this forum. I'm pleased to join you in the commemoration of this year's World Standards Day. Standards are a central pillar of a society's socio-economic well-being. They facilitate operations in agriculture, in health, transport, construction, manufacturing, among other sectors. Now, energy is a key input in all these sectors and is governed by standards that guide the design, operations, management, and safety of systems. IPRA, as the energy sector regulator, relies on standards to meet the Sustainable Development Goal, SDG number 7, which targets universal access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Several standards from KEPS have helped IPRA to develop and implement regulations that have gone a long way towards the achievement of this goal. Standards are also critical tools for enhancing consumer protection as they prescribe the minimum safety requirements for many energy equipment. The need to transform Kenya into an efficient energy market led to the introduction of the minimum energy performance standards and labeling program, targeting 6 electrical appliances, namely air conditioners, industrial motors, refrigerating appliances, self-ballast lamps, double-capped fluorescent lamps, and ballast for fluorescent lamps. To guide the implementation of the program, IPRA developed the Energy Appliances and Energy Performance and Labeling Regulations 2016, which have seen the country move towards the utilization of energy-efficient appliances, thereby reducing carbon emissions. These regulations have helped stop the importation of more than 200 different models of appliances that do not meet energy performance requirements. Further, the authority ensures that all licensed renewable energy technicians apply standards to guarantee delivery of quality works in energy audits, design of solar PV systems, and the design of energy management systems for facilities. The standards set for petroleum products have ensured that only petroleum products meeting approved specifications are allowed into the country. This, coupled with a strong fuel marking and surveillance system, has seen compliance efforts hit 99%. The high petroleum standards have rid Kenya of pollution and health complications associated with the burning of low-quality fuels. In 2018, IPRA partnered with KEPS to establish a cooking gas testing facility to ensure that all LPG imports are tested for conformity to Kenya standards before entering the country. This program, together with the implementation of LPG regulations 2019, has ensured that Kenyans enjoy safe cooking gas, boosting consumption while reducing the environmental and social damage associated with the use of traditional cooking fuels such as firewood and charcoal. These are just some of the golden examples of how standards can be employed to protect our planet and all life forms. I would like to affirm IPRA's commitment and cooperations in standards development and enforcement. Currently, EPRA is represented several technical committees where they play active roles in the standards development process. Finally, I urge all energy sector stakeholders and businesses in general to be environmental stewards by embracing energy standards. Adhering to the respective standards guarantees them consumer loyalty and ultimately meeting the bottom line. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the DG speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Indeed, labeling, marking, surveillance systems to create that safety, and ultimately a challenge for each one of us, and of course, industry players to be environmental stewards. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next 3 minutes again, we have Mr. Mamo Bimamo, National Environment and Management Authority Director General. Karibu sana.
Thank you. The chief guest, representative of Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, PS Industrialization, Dr. Francis Owino, ISO President, Mr. Edin Joroge, Chairman, National Standards Council, Engineer Bernard Ngore, my colleague, MD KEBS, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Njeraini, heads of government agencies present, colleagues, CEOs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. NEMA is pleased to join the global community today to pay special tribute to the collaborative efforts of thousands of scientists and experts worldwide who developed the technical agreements that are published as international standards. Standards published each year help organizations to protect the planet through enabling the control of waste, energy management, and renewable energy, and also integration of the same into the circular economy which each country is aspiring, including the recycling and reuse of materials, among others. And as they facilitate the use of these less polluting forms of transport, such as electric vehicles or hydrogen-powered trains, to reduce air emissions. As an authority, we had looked at a number of benefits of these standards that could also be used as a tool to reduce our carbon footprint to avert climate change, which is also one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In other words, standards are developed to help us succeed in fight against climate change and land degradation. It also lays standardized protocols and methods of measurements used to help reduce environmental impacts of industrial production and processes, facilitate the reuse of limited resources, and improve energy efficiency. As an authority, we acknowledge and appreciate ISO. ISO has produced over 300 environmental related standards, which firmly established the global benchmark for promoting best practices in environmental management globally. International standards can also be the vehicle for dissemination of innovative technologies, particularly for alternative and renewable energy sources, by reducing time to market, creating global interest, and developing a critical mass of support to ensure the success of such technologies. The chief guest, the standard can also assist companies develop innovative environmental technologies in reaching new markets, as it provides an independent verification of the performance of new environmental technologies, helping manufacturers prove the reliability of their performance claims, and for technology purchasers to identify the innovations that suit their needs. For example, ISO 14001 is a global benchmark for environmental management, best practices that can be applied to businesses of any size anywhere in the world. As NEMA, we note with appreciation that for over 50 years, ISO standards have been used to improve safety and efficiency while reducing wastes and cost in almost every sector of our economy. ISO environmental related standards can also help open world markets for cleaner energy and energy efficient technologies and support climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies, thus contributing directly to UN Sustainable Development Goal 13 on climate action. Moreover, the standards in the ISO 1400 series provide the tools for organizations to develop the starting point for all programs to control and eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. Fortunately, this transformation to zero carbon economy is already happening in many industrial, commercial, and municipal sectors, with ISO standards playing a pivotal role in making this happen. The chief guest, ISO standards for climate change helps businesses not only adhere to increasing regulatory requirements, but get a handle on their own environmental impacts, because they help them take concrete actions to reduce the impact by improving energy efficiencies and putting robust risk management processes in place. NEMA as a regulator rely on ISO standards as a base on which we create our relevant regulations. Currently, we have over 8 regulations and policies that meets the international commitments and addresses the many environmental challenges in our country. Chief guest, as you are aware, COVID-19 has put the spotlight on technology for educational systems, and we need to rethink how we deliver education in our country. Because the COVID-19 has forced schools, universities, and training institutions to go virtual, the learning curve has been very steep. However, on a positive note, the pandemic has also raised awareness on how IT can help education, and that people can learn anywhere so long as they have access to internet and appropriate technology, and teachers are prepared to teach virtually. As we also anticipate the increased use of the online tools will have an impact on how schools organize the education when the COVID-19 pandemic is under control or are put under control. As we celebrate this global event today, I want to challenge KEBS to propose some key recommendations for educational sector, so that we may need to have a global educational standards where schools can have standardized models for sharing, exchanging, and governing data. Then we are more likely to get equal high quality education for all in our country. NEMA has been a key member of various technical committees on standards convened by KEBS, and we look forward to strengthening and deepening our collaboration to deliver on our respective mandates. And as I conclude, I wish to congratulate KEBS for the leadership in coordinating various technical committees in coming up with relevant standards to achieve sustainable development in our country. Let's protect our planet with standards. It's everyone's responsibility. In NEMA, we say this is our environment, our life, and our responsibility. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much indeed, Ramamo. It's our life, this environment. We must protect it. It's our responsibility. Very quickly, In the next 3 minutes, let us please put our hands together for next speaker, Mr. Martin Chesire, Kenya Accreditation Service CEO. Stana.
Thank you, Chief Guest, the ISO President, Mr. Eddie Njoroge, Dr. Francis Owino, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Industrialization, the Chairman, National Standards Council, Engineer Ngore, the Managing Director, our host, Madam Jiraini, the ARSO Secretary General, Dr. Himojin Singomana, the representative of EPRA, my fellow DG, NEMA, Mr. Mamo Mamo, UNIDO Maka Project, Maina Karuiri, and Mr. Dewa, Director, Standards and SPS Trademark East Africa. Staff of KEBS, invited guests watching virtually, and those present, good morning. It's a great honor and pleasure for us as the Kenya Accreditation Service to join the standardization community in celebrating the role of standards and the importance of standards in protecting our planet. And of course, celebrating this and the opportunities of the new normal represented by COVID-19 pandemic. The Kenya Accreditation Service accredits or undertakes its services through standards. We accredit laboratories, inspection, verification, audit, and certification bodies against international standards that are formulated through the leadership of the Kenya Bureau of Standards as a national member for ISO and IEC. So therefore, our role is to prove conformity to standards for these facilities, be they laboratories, inspection, verification, and certification bodies. These facilities or entities do provide evidence of conformity, be it for air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, water quality, the food we eat, energy efficiency, among others. So the role of KENAS, in short, is to provide the added layer of assurance and confidence for businesses, regulators, government, and consumers in these services. We try and call ourselves the check-out checkers because we deliver trust through standards. Allow me to share a little bit about our relationship with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. It is quite unique. We are a creature. We were once a department within the Kenya Bureau of Standards. Today we stand as an autonomous institution under a new legal statute. Today we use some 31 standards, international standards, that are adopted by KEBS, formulated by ISO and IEC in the work of our accreditation. We participate in nearly 24 KEBS national committees, and we participate in the leadership of the ISO Committee on Conformity Assessment. So standards play a central role, not only in our work, but in the work that we do to support the economy and also our environment and the planet at large. Over the last 2 years, KENAS has worked with KEBS to host the first ISO Committee on Conformity Assessment to be held in Africa in April last year. This year, we have a mentee co-convener in the ISO Committee for Working Group on Conformity Assessment for Proficiency Testing Providers, and we hope we continue with this relationship into the future. One of our priorities always is to be at the table of standardization. Our work is driven by standards. We do not want to be standards takers, but to be the makers of standards and give a voice, and our voice, not only on behalf of the institution, but as a country, to the global best practices and solutions. So we live and breathe standards because standards are everywhere and used every day. So finally, without saying much, may I wish all those of you here a very, very happy World Standards Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We must be at the table of standardization. not just as takers, but makers. We must live and breathe standards. Thank you so much indeed. Next online, for the next 3 minutes, please put your hands together for our next speaker. Dr. Nsengimana, CEO, African Organization for Standardization. Karibu sana, CEO.
Good morning. PS, State Department Industrialization, Dr. Owino, my good friend, President of ISO, Edin Joroge, the chairman of the National Standard Council, Engineer Ngore, my host, KEBS, the DG, CEO, Lieutenant Colonel Jiraini, all honorables, and actually they are the honorables, the standard people, the one who make the standards. Today we are celebrating them. I think they deserve a hand before you continue. Let me thank the government of Kenya, first of all, for hosting ALSO. When I look at the previous presentation, especially the presentation from Esther, the Africa standards help in implementing the AFCFTA. By implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area that is actually starting in January 2021, we should remember a few key things. When we look at the theme of today, where we should use the standard to protect our planet, we should look at the sustainability issues. Sustainability is not just environment, is social, is also economical. Those are the three key pillars. And those three key pillars, if you look at the 17 SDGs of the 2030 program of the UN, the survey done bring three key SDGs on the table. The first being SDG number 10 on issues of reducing inequality. That is the first one when you do an assessment, reduce inequality. The second is SDG number 1, which is no poverty. Then the third is the SDG number 5, which is gender equality. Those are the key issues. How do we protect our planet? We protect our planet by looking at how we reduce inequality, how we eliminate poverty, how we bring together the gender equality. How are we going to do that? Africa is the youngest continent. 60% of our population is below 25 years old. We should start rethinking of the way we do business. We can just protect the planet, but forget that the first protection we need is on our continent. One is to trade to one another using the standards, because they are enablers. At the African continental level, we are developing Made in Africa Guide. The Made in Africa Guide is a guide that should help the countries to accept products that bear Made in Africa mark everywhere on our continent. This guide will be approved this year by our head of state. But if we look at that, our SMEs should have a big role to play. The standard we are making, the certification we have, are really relevant to our SMEs. Can we bring our SMEs in the big value chain On the ARZO level, we have what we call EcoMark Africa. Is a mark for eco-labeling. That mark for eco-labeling bring the smallest SME players into the bigger value chain, where you start certification from bronze level, silver level, gold, platinum for global perspective. And I am happy that actually KENAS is one of the accreditation body that is helping us for accreditation in that area. Together with the EcoMark, together with the Africa Traditional Medicine. But how do we work together as CABES, as NEMA, to bring those standards related to the environment to the smallest players of our economy, to the smallest players that should protect our environment? That is very key. Let's not forget that whatever we do, if we don't link that to social, economic, and environment, we will not be doing good for our continent. Lastly, Honorable PS, let's use the fourth industrial revolution. We have that 60% of youth. People are no more looking at carrying money, huge wallet. People are looking, give me the code, I send you money. People are looking at using the Uber application. I don't want probably to spoil my car when I am drunk. Yeah, I want an Uber to come and I move forward. Those are the things that currently our population, Kenya should be congratulated because M-Pesa started here. Imagine during COVID, if the M-Pesa was not there, what should we have done? And our youngest generation is the one doing that job to protect us from touching the money. That's where we should have our focus, to protect our planet. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow. The fourth industrial revolution, powerful. And that note, please remember, we have participants following us via Facebook Live. We know you are here, so kindly remember our hashtag World Standards Day KE, World Standards Day KE. All these quarter balls, tweet them. As a matter of fact, the best way to keep your notes is on Twitter. You will always recover them if you just follow that hashtag. That's hashtag World Standards Day KE. Powerful statements there. Thank you so much, Daktari. Sustainability. We're talking about social, economical. Reducing inequality, no poverty, gender equality, and it's absolutely interesting that today we're talking about World Standards Day. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the International Day of Rural Women. For centuries, they're still using the hand. We must change that. So talking about inequality, and of course we're talking about also Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. And on that note, before I invite our next speaker, imagine yourself on your 93rd birthday. And for some, by 2063, will already be there or past. What story will you tell? And I'd kindly request the sound, gentlemen, please help me with this sound, because this is a 93-year-old gentleman talking about his experience when the world was so beautiful. And now he's standing and saying, we need to change. We need to change. Hopefully, you and I, when we clock 93, will talk of an Africa that was terribly going in the wrong direction, but now recovered. This is Sir Attenborough. Volume, please.
Tonight, we've got rather different program. I believe that most extraordinary life. It's only now that I appreciate how extraordinary. The living world is a unique and spectacular marvel. Yet the way we humans live on Earth is sending it into a decline. We're replacing the wild with the tame. This film is my witness statement and my vision of the future. The story of how we came to make this our greatest mistake. How, if we act now, we can yet put it right.
What will be your story and mine when we click 93 years? Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is already at the forefront as a trailblazer. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. The gentleman who has really made it possible for us to be here, we celebrate you. Asante sana na karibu. That is none other than Lieutenant Colonel, retired Bernard Njiraini, Managing Director, Kenya Bureau of Standards. A big round of applause for him, please.
Thank you. The Principal Secretary, State Department of Industrialization, Dr. Francis Owino, member of the National Standard Council, the National Standard Council Chairman, Engineer Bernard Gore, the ARSO Secretary General, Dr. Himogene Isengemana, I hope I have done it correctly today. NEMA DG, Mr. Mamo, Director General, EPRA, Representative, Dr. Nyang, the CEO, Kenas, Martin Chesire, our development partners with us this morning, the National Project Coordinator, Maka Project, UNIDO, Maina, Karuiru, our TIMEA, SPS, Trademark East Africa, Dr. Andrew Endewa, distinguished guests, all our guests that have joined us this morning virtually, including the members of the National Standard Council. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank each one of you for joining Kenya Bureau of Standards family in commemoration of the 2020 World Standard Day. Allow me to give special thanks to our parent ministry, led by our CS, Betty Maina, for the continued support and collaboration in pursuit of our mandate to provide standardization, metrology, and conformity assessment services in the country. I also take this opportunity to recognize the presence of the International Organization for Standardization, Mr. Andy Joroge. It's a great honor for you to join us this morning. I'm the only national standard body that hosts the ISO president, and it's a great honor. Our development partners and collaborating government agencies, thank you very much for honoring our invitation, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, today's occasion could not have come at a better time. Anchored under the theme, protecting the planet with standards, this year's World Standard Day celebrations provide a great opportunity to not only discuss one of the greatest challenges of our time, but also the role of standards in climate change action. Standards not only provide people and organizations with a basis for mutual understanding, but also used as tools to facilitate communication, measurement, commerce, and manufacturing. The application of environmental standard is one way of ensuring human development progresses at a regulated and accepted pace, while preserving nature and protecting environment against damages. It is therefore essential to develop, ratify, and enforce standards that ensure an environmentally sound, safer, and sustainable future. At this end, the Kenya Bureau of Standards has developed and adopted over 1,100 environmental standards on air, water, and soil quality, greenhouse gases emission and radiation, energy efficiency, clean energy, and environmental aspect of products. As a developing nation, keen on infrastructure development that spurs socio and economic growth, Kenya has adopted various standards to minimize its carbon footprint and preserve air quality. This includes, and I kindly request you to allow me to mention a few of the standards that have been developed to conserve our environment, our energy, ensure we have clean water and good soil to support life. KS ISO 14064 greenhouse gases part 1 and KS ISO 14,064 greenhouse gases part 2, specifications with guidance that provide the country standards of limit for greenhouse gases emission, KS ISO 10,155 that guides stationary source emissions to regulate air quality, KS EAS 7552 that set the maximum level for tolerance of emissions discharge in the air, as well as KS EAS 158 that guides on the acceptable level, lead level in the gasoline specification. More recently, the government adopted the use of ICT to make its processes efficient, effective, as well as providing an enabling environment to its population to adopt innovation. To cushion the environment from harm, KEBS has put in place standards to regulate our commendable technological progress in order to prevent environmental damage and ensure responsible and efficient use of energy. Some of the notable standards include KS 2880 part 1 and KS 2879 part 1 that they set the minimum energy performance standards, maps for the ICT equipment. Safeguarding the quality of water is important for both human and aquatic life. Some of the standards that protect health of water bodies include KS ISO 8689 Part 1, which outlines the biological classification of rivers, an important water source for a majority of the country's population. KS 1966 Part 1 provides the tolerance levels of effluent discharged into the river, while KS 2067 Part 2 provides methods of sampling of wastewater whose contaminant loads originate from the sugar industries. Standards also play an important role in promoting sustainable use of energy. Of significance are the standards that help organizations and households to adopt efficient energy use. These standards will, in the long term, help Kenya to build sustainable cities and communities. For example, KS ISO 711 lays out a management system for sustainable development in the smart and productive communities using a holistic approach. This ensures consistency with the sustainable development policies. Preserving the planet means preserving the quality of our soils. Standards such as KS ISO 15800 provide us with the characterization of soils and sites relative to human exposure. Specifications from these standards can be used for decision-making by companies, individuals, local and national authorities in relation to use of soil. Ladies and gentlemen, KEBS has adopted over 342 ISO standards that address climate change challenges, including special technologies such as refrigerants, energy in its various forms, sustainability and environment, building and construction, mechanical engineering, surface industries such as tourism, ores and metals, transport, freight, packaging and distribution, non-metallic materials, security, safety, and risk. KEB is also in the process of adopting more ISO standards, such as ISO 14055 and ISO 38200 on environmental management and sustainable forestry. In conclusion, I wish to reiterate KEB's commitment to actively play our part to protect our environment through standards. We will continue working hand in hand with both internal and external stakeholders, policymakers, private sector, government agencies, to consistently develop and adopt standards as part of our contribution toward environmental conservation and sustainability. One such noble collaboration with NEMA that resulted in eradication of plastic paper bags in the country in 2017 is a testament of how combined effort can bring a long-lasting positive change to the environment. It is now my humble pleasure to welcome the chairman of the National Standard Council of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, Engineer Bernard Gore, to make his remarks. Welcome, Engineer.
Thank you. Dr. Francis Owino, PhD, CBS, Principal Secretary, State Department of Industrialization, who is also representing the CS. Mr. Andy Njoroge, President, ISO. And at this juncture, I must mention, I'm the only chairman who chairs a meeting, which is attended by a president. Those of us who know the character of presidents, you cannot chair a meeting attended by a president. But our president is a very humble person. He makes it very easy for me and for all of us. Members of the National Standards Council who are following us virtually, Lieutenant Kano, retired Bernard Jiraine, Managing Director, KEBS, Dr. Monjini Zengimana, Secretary General, Africa Organization for Standardization, Mr. Mamo, Director General, National Environment and Management Authority, NEMA, IPRA Representative, Dr. Nyang, Mr. Martin Chesire, CEO, KENAS, our development partners, Mr. Andrew Endewa, Director Standards, SPS Measures, Trademark East Africa, TIMEA, Mr. Maina Karuiro, National Project Coordinator, Markup Kenya Project, UNINDO, distinguished guests present and those joining us virtually, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great honor to have each and every one of you here with us as we celebrate the World Standards in Day 2020. It is indeed a very important day marked in our year calendar world over. This year, Kenya as a country was threatened by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was mid-March when we recorded the first case. The country took a tremendous effort in mitigating critical issues that accompanied the disease. Amid this tragedy, we were encouraged to note good strides that we have undertaken collectively in flattening the curve. And the Kenyan Bureau of Standards came in handy to develop standards which supported the people who are manufacturing PPEs. Ladies and gentlemen, in tandem with the theme this year, we have developed standards that have reduced the negative impact of COVID-19 to our environment. The government has supported the policies and the measures that have encouraged the use of standards in protecting the planet from the adverse effects of the known and the unknown. Environmental determinants of health, such as aspects of energy savings, water, soil, and air quality are managed by use of standards, which prescribe standardized products or protocols and methods of measurement. Their broad use helps reduce the environmental impact of manufacturing, facilitates the reuse of limited resources, and improves energy efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to address and challenge the scientific community, technocrats, environmentalists, and the manufacturers, and all interested parties. COVID-19 has continued to be a mystery to us. There are accountable elements that can safeguard our planet and consequently our future generations. Together, we can preempt the adverse effects extended to our environment, just as witnessed at the onset of the pandemic. Development of Kenya standards and the adoption of ISO standards with a focus on enforcement of their use will gradually and definitely benefit us. In conclusion, the pandemic is also influencing our planet positively. For example, air pollution levels dropped significantly since measures such as quarantines and shutdowns were put in place to contain COVID-19 around the world. Given the challenge, the environmental benefits can only be temporary unless we implement long-term measures to reduce our emissions. The lessons learned in fighting COVID-19 pandemic need to help prepare counter future pandemics now that we know after every 100 years there is an outbreak. Given this compelling international interest of safeguarding our planet Earth, it is vital to carry out research, develop and implement the standards that will strive in strategizing and directing us towards a common goal. And at this juncture, I would like to mention that for 10 years, since 2009 to 20, I was involved in a technical committee on the vehicles developing standards. And as director, standards told us, KEBS only provides the secretariat. Standards are developed by experts from the industry, from the academia, and all the stakeholders, including the interesting groups. So KEBS only provides the secretariat, and all these people, they do this work voluntarily. So the point I want to make is that whatever effort you do, whatever effort, any positive effort will never go unrewarded. So even as we talk today of developing standards which will protect our planet, it might sound abstract or undear, but if we put effort, as I mentioned earlier, every 100 years, and all of us know from history, every 100 years a pandemic strikes. Will the world be prepared to combat the next pandemic? Let us start developing standards from today to protect the planet Earth. The effort is voluntary, as I mentioned, but every effort we put in will never go to waste. That is my encouragement today. Without further delay, I would like to welcome the cabinet, to welcome the permanent secretary, State Department of Industrialization, Dr. Owino. Let's put us together for Daktari. Karibu, karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Mr. Eddie Njoroge, President, International Organization for Standardization. Dr. Hamojin Nsengimana, I got it right? Secretary General, Africa Organization for Standardization. Engineer Bernard Ngore, Chairman, National Standards Council. Members of the National Standards Council present here today. Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Giraine, MD KEBS, Mr. Mamo, B. Mamo, DG NEMA, Mr. Martin Chesire, CEO Kenas, Mweni Mutunga, Acting DG EPRA, Dr. Andrew Edewa, Director of Standards and SPS, Timea, Mr. Maina Karwil, National Project Coordinator, Markup, development partners here present today, participating government agencies, distinguished guests present and those joining us virtually, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Francis Owino, the PS responsible for industrialization, and today I stand before you representing my CS, Madam Betty Maina, who was not able to make it here this morning due to an emergency that arose early this morning. So I'm here to present her comments, and there it goes. Let me begin by thanking you all for the warm reception and welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 14th October every year, members of the International Organization for Standardization, the International Electrotechnical Commission, and the International Telecommunication Union throughout the world commit to preserving common interests in strengthening and advancing the voluntary consensus-based international standards system. World Standards Day marks the date in 1946 when delegates from 25 countries gathered in London for the first time and to decide to create an international organization focused on facilitating standardization. All around the world, we have experienced the ravages of the global pandemic, COVID-19, since the beginning of the year. For our government in particular, this is a watershed moment. We note with satisfaction the role that standards play in our response to the COVID-19 pandemic at a time when global supply chains and logistics were rendered helpless by the measures that governments took to mitigate the spread of the virus. In quickly adopting and developing our Kenyan standards, we were able to offer solutions to the health response. Undeniably, the linkage between standards, trade, and growth of businesses has never been clearer. We have witnessed first-class manufactured products come from our production lines, the participation of SMEs in providing products during the initial response phase, so the growth of new businesses and trade transcending our national boundaries in the region. The kind of response articulates the central role played by standards and the application in transforming Kenya into a newly industrializing middle-income country in a sustainable manner. The theme, protecting the planet with standards, emphasizes the critical role that standardization, metrology, and conformity assessment services played in the realization of standard sustainable development and climate change action. Climate change is one of the greatest threats to Kenya's socioeconomic well-being, as it has the potential to negate the development gains made over the years and derail the attainment of Vision 2030 and the government's Big Four agenda. Stakeholders in various sectors have developed diverse climate change mitigation and adaptation measures through programs that further underscore the need for concerted efforts within a multi-sectoral approach. The government endeavors to provide functional, quality infrastructure to harness the opportunities and benefits of standardization in promoting and sustaining economic development, environmental, and social well-being. Through this membership to ISO, Kenya through KEBS has developed and adopted environmental standards aimed at mitigating the impact of human activities on the planet, including specifications on air, water, soil quality, greenhouse gases, emissions, and radiation, energy efficiency, clean energy, and environmental aspects of products. These standards provide technical regulations for prioritizing adaptation and enhance climate resilience in disaster risk management, food and nutritional security, promotion of water and blue economy, forestry, wildlife and tourism, health, sanitation, manufacturing, human settlement, energy, and transport. The Standards and Quality Infrastructure Reforms Task Force, appointed in December 2019 to champion the standards and quality infrastructure reforms in Kenya, is still ongoing. Although their work was interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, their tenure has been extended. They have one onerous task of reviewing the standards and quality infrastructure through the analysis of the entire ecosystem of policy, legal, and legislative frameworks of the various institutions and agencies that deal with standards. And as we speak, this task force is reaching out to the key actors and stakeholders to get their input into their final report. I am aware that the final draft report is being prepared and will be subjected to validation by stakeholders in due course. The team should be done with this assignment in the third week of November. This is a negotiated timeframe and timelines with the ministry. As a ministry, we expect that that the outcome of the task force will go a long way in helping us put in place the right policies, the appropriate legal and regulatory framework, and the practices needed to support and enhance the quality, the safety, and environmental soundness of goods, services, and processes. Finally, let me pay great tribute to the efforts by international, regional, and national organizations in the field of standardization. Kenya, through KEBS, is a full member of ISO, the International Electronic Technical Commission, and the International Telecommunication Union. In this regard, KEBS ensures that Kenya's interests are represented in international standardization and forms an important bridging function between the standardization experts and the standards users. It is also noteworthy mentioning that ISO President, Mr. Eddie Njoroge, is one of our own, son of Kenya, and we indeed take great pride in that. I thought you would put your hands together for that. Recognizing that standards are developed by technical individuals for users, I wish to conclude my remarks with the following challenges. Challenge number one. My first challenge is to the Kenya Bureau of Standards. The SMEs and businesses have demonstrated their versatility through key participation in the COVID-19 response by supplying the much needed products that meets the KEBS standards. For heaven's sake, let us not lose sight of this. Let us forge meaningful relationships with the SMEs that support us in the manufacturing, trade, and enterprises development in an effort to grow the economy of this country. Challenge number two is to ensure consumers as users of standards. Let us enhance standards through demand for quality. Thank you for the efforts that went into the preparations for the celebration of this great event. The World Standards Day, led by the Kenya Bureau of Standards Fraternity, our development partners, key ministries, departments, and agencies, private sector players here present. Your efforts are sincerely appreciated. Those are the sentiments of the Sub-Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, Madam Betty Maina. I would wish to add that during the height of COVID, KEBS and other related bodies went through an experience. Sometimes the National Standards Council was called upon to meet its obligation outside the timelines and the timeframes that are ordinarily there. Could we reflect and look back as an agency and as government, what is it that we did right during the COVID period that we need to cling to? I can mention that when pressure piled on KEBS to produce standards for PPEs, the standards came out. Hello? So if the standards could come out under pressure, could we find a way of streamlining that process, that pressure, into our new normal in standardization and standards development process in Kenya? Hello? That is possible. So let us not lapse to our former. Can we hype on the tempo that has already been developed and generated courtesy of COVID, and grow the commitment, grow the dedication, grow the drive, and facilitate investment, specifically the SME sector of this country. The innovation, the initiatives that we were exposed to ought not to be put at the back burner. KEBS, please take your noble role and responsibility and keep the tempo to take this country to the next level on standardization. With those very many comments, it is now my privilege and pleasure to request you to put your hands together to enable us welcome the President ISO, Mr. Eddie Njoroge. Makofi kwa President moja. President apigiwe makofi ya para. Let's get organized. The President is on the floor. Makofi moja. Mbili. Tatu. Karibu bwana President. Funga. Fungua.
Standards takers.
His personal motto is daring to go.
I pledge to champion the vision of ISO standards used everywhere.
He believes nothing is impossible if you set your mind and your energy to it.
My agenda across not just Africa, but developing countries is to make sure that they become developers of standards, not just takers of standards.
ISO President Eddie Njoroge.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my great honor and privilege as the ISO President to be here with you as you celebrate this 35th World Standards Day under the theme, Protecting the Planet with Standards. Let me first of all acknowledge and appreciate the presence of my very good friend, Dr. Francis Otieno, Principal Secretary, State Department for Industry and Enterprise, and all other dignitaries and all those who have. The very first World Standards Day was celebrated on 14th of October 1970 as an initiative of the ISO president at the time, Mr. Farouk Sunta, who was from Turkey. The decision for World Standards Day to be celebrated jointly by both ISO and ISO members was agreed upon in 1988, while ITU joined in 1993. Today, all three organizations celebrate this day united by a common theme. Each year, a theme is selected to highlight the role of standards in various facets of life. It is noticeable to note that of the 35 World Standards Day celebrations done so far, 4 of them in the years 1990, 2000, 2007, and now in 2020 have a direct theme linked to environment. This was after the realization of how environment is a central topic in the modern day world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the importance of standards and take a moment with me and imagine a world without standards. A world where you are not certain of getting the same product or services whenever and wherever you purchase something. Imagine a world of different sizes and shapes of debit and credit cards. Each would need a specific ATM to work. Imagine if electrical bulb manufacturers produced different size light bulbs. What if graphical symbols such as electric power symbol varied from country to country or from machine to machine? As we celebrate this year's World Standards Day under the banner of protecting the planet with standards, could you picture an industrialized nation without environmental standards? Imagine the scale of pollution ranging from factories and vehicle emissions, causing smog and acid rain, agricultural runoff from farms containing fertilizers or toxic chemicals, resulting in algal blooms that choke out other plants and decrease the amount of available oxygen necessary for survival of other species in water bodies. Or can you imagine improper disposal of items such as nets, non-degradable plastic bags, or other materials that may accumulate in seas, lakes, or oceans and lead to premature death of aquatic animals that may get entangled with garbage. But thanks to standards, we are all protected and connected. Ladies and gentlemen, this year has been a year like no other. No one ever imagined that something of 120 nanometers in size would be the greatest disruptor, reshuffling economic and social structures of the 21st century. Across the globe, many have been infected, but no one has been spared from the effects of this global pandemic caused by the coronavirus. It is much more than a health issue, but an economic and social issue too, even as our good doctor Hemogene said. The devastating effects of the pandemic has seen economies shut down and left millions destitute. And this is far from over. Uncertainty reigns, and the full effects may yet to be felt. It presents challenges on a truly global scale, as no other event of this scale has been witnessed in many years. We saw varied responses to the pandemic by different countries around the world, each giving rise to diverse outcomes. Even in our own East African region, the response was different from one country to the other, and we all know the results of that. While the pandemic has on one hand demonstrated the global connectivity of the issues facing humanity today, it has on the other hand revealed the huge gap in international response towards pandemics and other disasters. We need international standards more than ever to bridge this gap. And Mr. Chairman, I do hope that in the next 100 years, by the time we get into the next pandemic, there will be a uniformed response to that pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, our planet is the source of our life. It dictates our state of well-being, our health, our economic and social structure, and when this fails, so do everything else. However, increasing global population, negative consumption patterns, pressure from extractive industry, and poor waste disposal systems have posed serious environmental challenges on the planet. International standards, on the other hand, can do so much to protect and rebuild our planet, making us stronger and fitter for a sustainable future. The time for action is now, and we need to act with haste. ISO has published several international standards that can support this global challenge. A key and important example is ISO 14000 series for environmental management standard, which was first approved in 1996, long before other organizations took serious steps towards environmental management. ISO has partnered with key international stakeholders, such as United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the World Bank, in developing strategic roadmaps for a system of standards on climate change mitigation and adaptation. For example, ISO 14008 describes a framework and principles to make adaptation and mitigation schemes more compatible and elaborate the different approaches of mitigation and adaptation. It will also support the efforts of developed and developing countries in relation to mitigation and adaptation. In addition, there are a number of standards in the pipeline to support adaptation and resilience for organizations and communities. This includes those for vulnerability assessment, adaptation planning, and adaptation monitoring and evolution. ISO has more than 200 standards relating to energy efficiency and renewable. ISO standards help organizations reduce energy consumption and adopt renewable energy technologies. They also ensure interoperability, which encourages the transition to renewable energy sources, opening up markets for innovations that are energy challenge. This includes standards for biofuels, offshore and onshore wind farms, solar power, hydrogen technologies, electric cars, and many more. As we have been told, economy is just as important as we try and protect our planet. The circular economy is another example where standards are truly leading the way in facilitating its growth and development. Increase in consumerism and the use of disposable products has made the modern humankind a throwaway society, which has led to not only depletion of the natural resources, but also pollution of the environment. This linear approach is no longer sustainable. But the circular economy approach, where nothing is wasted, rather it gets reused or transformed, is the way to go. While this is key to responsible consumption and production, there is no global agreement on the components of circular approach. Recognizing this need, ISO has created a technical committee to develop standards in this area. ISO TC 323, chaired by AFNO France, on circular economy featured experts from over 70 different countries. It aims to develop frameworks, guidance, supporting tools and requirements for relevant activities to directly contribute to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, which is part of goal number 12 of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Importance of our members. Of course, we can't do any of what we are trying to do without the support and activity and involvement of our members. KEBS is an important member, actively involved in some 80 committees, as you have been told, and an observer on a further 154. KEBS holds the secretariat for ISO TC 285 for clean cook stoves, which contributes directly to the cause of protecting our people and our planet. KEBS is also involved in committees that contribute directly to the World Standards Day theme and sustainable future. Having said that, I would have a few challenges that I would want to throw to a few groups. And the first group is the governments, various governments all over the world. And the challenge is, I would request the governments to comply with multilateral agreements such as United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Paris Agreement, Convention on Biological Diversity, amongst others. Commit to strict waste management disposal policies, laws, and regulations, which give relevant authorities the power to terminate operations if proper waste management systems are not followed. Identify and address governance, legal, and regulatory harmonization problems that may exist between different sector players. And finally, enhance awareness of the negative impact of environmental degradation through information sharing mechanisms. And to the industries, I have the following challenges. I urge you to adopt best practice and codes of conduct on environmental management, and the easiest way to achieve this is through implementation of standards. I also urge you to promote transparency and information sharing with authorities, particularly about your environmental systems, and adopt energy efficiency programs and policies. And to the individuals, that is each and every one of us. This pandemic has not only exposed how fragile our planet really is and how vulnerable we all are, but also how vitally important our health is. The health of our planet equates to our own health and life and the basis of our future. As Pope Francis said in his encyclic letter of 2015 on care of common home, and I quote, "Any wounds inflicted to the planet are wounds that also bleed in us." Ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate this important day in Standardization World's calendar, the World Standards Day, I would like to thank you for your valuable contribution to our work and to help us protect our planet and build a better, more sustainable future. As the ISO president, I promise to advance broader proposals for dialogue and action that will involve all of us and also shape international policy. This will eventually help us achieve ISO's vision of making the world safer, easier, and better. As I conclude, I leave you with words of one of the world's greatest athletes of modern times, Eliud Kipchoge, who said, "Marathon is life, and life is full of challenges. We look ahead, and together we build towards an even greater future, which we hope to inspire many humans as possible." As we reflect, I urge each and every one of us to embrace the unprecedented challenges, look ahead, and commit to protect our planet by normalizing standards as a way of life. Asanteni sana, God bless you, and have a great World Standards Day. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Celebrate you, Madam President. Right now, before you take your seat, Mr. President, I'd kindly request that we now prepare ourselves to honor many great individuals here. There are many in terms of their age, their contribution. These are the retirees in Standards Development and Trade Department. The quote from Eliud, "We look forward to inspire." These gentlemen and ladies have done so, and they are inspiring us to move forward and also have the opportunity to inspire other generations. I'd kindly request that we have Director Standards, Managing Director, and appears to come forward. We have gifts for these gentlemen and ladies, and I'll call them one by one. For those who are here, I'd kindly request that you come. And for those who are not here, joining via Zoom or Facebook Live, we want to say asanteni sana and well done for keeping it up. We'll start very quickly with Madam Alice Onyango. For all of us, please, let us give them a big round of applause. Madam Alice Onyango, we have Margaret Aleke. Do we have Margaret? We'll start with Madam Alice Onyango. Do we have a big round of applause to Madam Alice. Asante sana, thank you so much. So we have a gift here from Director Standards to the Managing Director and the PS. So thank you so much indeed. We are ready to celebrate Madam Alice Onyango. Makofi yake tafadhali. Thank you so much indeed. We celebrate your work. Thank you so much for inspiring this generation to even work harder. Asante sana. Thank you so much indeed. Asante. Makofi tafadhali. Next online, Madam Margaret Aleke. Madam Margaret Aleke is also here. Big round of applause for her, please. Thank you so much indeed. Asante sana. Next online, Mr. Charles Maeba. Mr. Charles Maeba. Thank you so much indeed. We celebrate you. Asante sana. Asante sana. Bwana Maeba is here. Retirees in Standards Development and Trade Department. We are recognizing them today during the World Standards Day celebrations. Asante. Makofi yake tafadhali. Well done. Thank you so much indeed. Next on line we have Madam Emily Kabala. Madam Emily Kabala, karibu sana. A retiree in Standards Development and Trade Department. Asante sana. Asante sana. Thank you so much, Madam Kabala. Next on line as we celebrate standards, we're saying thanks to standards, we are all connected and protected. Next on line is Madam Margaret Nzioka. Madam Margaret Nzioka. Makofi yake tafadhali. If she's not here, we celebrate you. If you're watching via Zoom or Facebook Live, we celebrate you. Asante sana. Online we have Mr. Stephen Maumba. Mr. Stephen Maumba. Thank you so much. Mr. Stephen Maumba, thank you so much. Makofi yake tafadhali. Asante. Well done. We want to take that memorable photo there. We celebrate you as a retiree. Excellent, excellent. Mr. Stephen Maumba, asante sana. Well done, well done, well done. Next on line we have Mr. Justin Kasimu. Mr. Justin Kasimu, asante sana. Well done. Asante sana. Thank you so much. And we're not just celebrating you here at the Boma, you are also being celebrated across the online platform, Zoom, Facebook Live, on Twitter. The conversation is still on, so thank you so much. And finally, we have Madam Grace Chagema. Madam Grace Chagema. Asante sana. Thank you so much. Makofi yao. Maybe for once, let us all just stand up and give them a big round of applause. And there is the team courtesy of KEBS. Are you ready? Are you ready? They are here. Kindly help me out with the sound. Help me out with the sound here. They want to celebrate in music. And for the Bwana PS, asante sana kwa kuja. We celebrate, of course, after this we will be having a plenary session. In case your program is tied, you're still open to still remain. But go ahead, Kebson.
God bless you. We are the Kebs Choir, at least part of the Kebs Choir, and we will be singing the Kebs anthem, and then after that we will take you through one song just to liven up the mood and appreciate the retirees and celebrate the day. So we will start the Kebs song and then take it up from there.
We talk of standards everywhere you go. We are dedicated in service delivery, taking care of your needs. Yes, the only standard board for your approval case. Whatever in your sight, you have to get it right. For testing is KEBS, for measurement is KEBS, assessment is KEBS. It is standards for quality life. Kweli ni viwango kwa maisha bora, huduma twatoa bila kubagua, uadilifu kazini, kuungana, kuwajibika kijamii. KEBS, the only standard board for your approval case. Whatever in your sight, you have to get it right. For testing is KEBS, for measurement is KEBS, assessment is KEBS. It is standards for quality life.
Big round of applause, Keb's Choir. Oh yes, thank you so much. We have, okay. Do you have the sound there?
Okay, it's not so loud from the speakers, but we're going to take it on. Huh?
Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, Siyabonga, Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, Siyabonga, Wahambanati, Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, Siyabonga, Wahambanati, Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, Siyabonga, Siyabonga,
Aya daktari.
Siyabonga,
Bwana PS, Mr. President. Siyabonga.
Siyabonga, 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 Zulu.
Kila mtu, Siyabonga.
Siyabonga, Wahambanati,
Wahambanati,
oh Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, Siyabonga, Wahambanati, Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, oh Wahambanati, Siyabonga, watembea nasi, watembea nasi, oh watembea nasi, oh watembea nasi, ni asante,
Tunasema asante kabisa.
tembea nasi, oh tembea nasi, oh tembea nasi, ni asante Yesu, ni asante sana waina, ni asante Yesu,
World Standards
ni
Day
asante
2020. Today we are alive to celebrate this day. It's a great honor. And remember, we have a hashtag, World Standards KKE, Asante. Kila mtu salute. They were alive to take on the Asante sana William. Wow. Oh, that energy, we need to move it to the next generation, the next phase of Kenya, Africa. Thank you so much indeed, Keb's Choir. We celebrate you. Right now, we want to move on very quickly to that place we have a candid discussion. I'd kindly request that we sort out the sound of a couple of videos we want to play. And of course, we have a guest, a panelist who will be joining us via Zoom as well. In the meantime, very quickly, I'd kindly request the following. So thank you so much indeed. I'd kindly request very quickly, I'll call upon the panelists to come forward. Then we'll have a quick introduction where they will give us their preliminary remarks. Then please remember, fourth industrial revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, your phones, please. Your phones. Remember www.menti.com. Don't forget that, because you will have an opportunity to ask your questions. All those who are here, and of course, those who are following online as well. But in the meantime, very quickly, I'd want to appreciate the presence of Engineer Zakaria Lukorito, Head of Standards Development and Trade. Kebs, a big round of applause for him. Thank you so much indeed. We have next online, we have Dr. Andrew Edewa. Dr. Andrew Edewa, he spoke to us earlier on. Asante Sana, thank you so much indeed for coming. Director of Standards SPS, Measures Trademark East Africa. Thank you so much. Next online, we have Dr. Jane Nyakango, Director, Kenya National Cleaner Production Center. A big round of applause for her, please. Thank you so much indeed. And finally, we have Engineer Edward Kinyua. Engineer Edward Kinyua, PE, Director for Petroleum and Gas at the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA. Represented by Bwana Musonya. Thank you so much for being here. This is just to remind you, we are still live on Facebook. Remember, we have a hashtag World Standards Day, KE, already trending number 5 and number 4 right now. As we keep on tweeting, we'll definitely tell the globe that we are here saying we must protect the planet with standards. As we prepare our panelists to give their opening remarks, there is a particular concern that I want to bring to their attention. If you're able to look at the screens, you see nature has a way. We have a lot to learn from nature. When you look at this video, you see the beauty of nature. You see nature has standards. You have a plant, it starts, then all of a sudden we have a caterpillar or whatever it is. When that happens, there's another big animal that comes, and then that big animal dies, and then all of a sudden, guess what? There is a cycle. Wow, we are back to the same product. But now you come to human beings, you and I. You get your small phone. What happens? You get a bigger phone. Another bigger phone. And then what happens? You get all those gadgets. And then what happens at the end? We do not know how to turn the first product or the product we have to the very first. There is no cycle thinking, unfortunately. But we can change that through standards. And that is how we can protect our planet, where there are critical standards. The process is clear. Everything is regulated. There's science, there's technology that is experienced for the optimum benefit of communities. And we're saying that will happen if all of us take responsibility and say we are part of this work that we have, the challenge that we've been given. And so I'd request, we'll start with Engineer Zakaria Lukorito, Head of Standards Development and Trade. For 2 minutes, give us your preliminary remarks in regards to this year's theme. How critical is this theme moving forward?
This year's theme is very important and critical to our work as a national standards body. And I want to state that this year's theme was actually selected based on the challenges we are facing as a planet. And to start with, we are looking at environmental standards. And specifically, as has been alluded before, we understand the importance of ISO 14001 standard that underpins the environmental management systems. That's a basic standard that if you are either in manufacturing, service, or any other sector, you need to look at how your processes actually affect the environment. And this standard lays the foundation for other activities that you carry out. And when you move up the ladder, you realize that there are specific standards that support this basic standard. We look at the ISO 14064 part 1 on greenhouse gas emissions. It looks at the various emissions that go into our environment. And going down, you realize that beyond that standard, you have to consider also the air quality, whether indoor, in the workplaces. You look at the clean rooms and the stationary sources. You look at the exhaust emissions from the transport system. And as a standards body, we are moving away from the conventional internal combustion engines and looking at cleaner technologies, for example, in electrically propelled vehicle standards. And we've worked across this sector to ensure that actually we are protecting the planet that we are living in. Secondly, when it comes to energy management, ISO 5001 lays the foundation for looking at how we efficiently use our energy sources. And we, as a national standards body, again, we've looked at the applicable standards together with the stakeholders and seen that actually it's important to consider renewable energy sources. Specifically for the solar panels, you look at the energy collectors, water heating systems. These are key standards that will actually address the issues that we need to look at when it comes to protecting the planet. And as I've mentioned, we work with stakeholders who have the wisdom and the knowledge that bring on the table. Looking at the, for example, greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide, you look at methane, which is about 28 times more polluting than carbon dioxide. You look at nitrous oxides, you look at sulfur hexafluorides, you go down to hydrocarbons, which emit up to 8,060 times more than the carbon dioxide. Nitrogen trifluorides, which emit more than 17,000 times than carbon dioxide. And when you look at these pollutions, they come from certain sources. We have fossil fuels that we do combustions. You have domestic combustions. We've also talked about the clean cookstoves and clean cooking technologies. Therefore, looking at across all these sectors, we are addressing those issues in standards.
Thank you so much, Engineer. We'll come back to the details. Right now, we want to get your thoughts on how critical this particular theme is. Kindly let us allow Dr. Edewa to come in second because of the standards. And of course, you spoke on earlier on, but really sink in to the reality of why this particular theme is very critical in this era.
This year's theme on protecting the planet through standards is a very important theme because it contributes directly to one of the three main pillars of sustainable development, the environment. And the environment houses our natural resources. Natural resources are the wealth of nations. And if they are not sustained, it means then that we cannot use them for our future production. So there's need that we protect our natural resources and make them available also to subsequent generations to come. This is very important. Now we're looking at air, cleanliness of air, avoiding pollution. Soils, our farmers should maintain healthy soils. Look at waters, our oceans should be kept clean. Otherwise, then our fish will get contaminated or it may not even survive at all. Climate change is a big area. We need to mitigate and we need to have adaptive measures to climate change. Waste and pollution management in general is a major problem in industrial systems, farm systems, and so must be having proper ways of dealing with it. Lastly, biodiversity. Biodiversity, how are we keeping other species also with advantages, or is humanity causing disadvantage to other species? Now, all this is possible only through maintaining and using standards in our work, in agriculture, in manufacturing, and in trade. Governments need to come up with frameworks that will support systems that implement these standards. Policies, regulations, institutions that support this, while the private sector on their part need to be aware of these standards, implement them by upgrading the systems, and finally comply with all of the relevant standards and regulations pertaining to the environment.
Dr. Deva, thank you so much. Dr. Jane, Director, Kenya National Cleaner Production Center. Why is this theme so critical at this point in time?
I hope you hear me with my mask on. I come from a background of cleaner production and resource efficiency that I've been promoting as an institution for the last 20 years. And I'll tell you that standards are very, very important because if you look at environmental standards, they actually set emission limits of the regulated community into the environment, whether it's air, water, and land. And with these limits, therefore, it means that they are not just going to be able to discharge, to produce and then discharge whatever levels of pollution they want to discharge into the environment, but they are guided by these standards. Although, as I'm going to give you in my presentation, challenges abound with these linear standards that we have been promoting here in Kenya and applying since now 2000, environmental standards since 2006. Experiences we have, I'm going to share with you, and I'll give you my philosophical underpinning on where we should go next in the 21st century. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nixon Bukachi. I'm here on behalf of Engineer Edward Kinywa, who could not participate in this event because of other engagements. Basically, the theme for this year is important, especially for us as the energy regulator, whose mandate is basically to enhance access to sustainable, cost-effective, and quality energy for all. And in this case, when we are doing this, we are looking at aspects of best practice in terms of safety of the energy users. So if someone is doing an installation, for example, for the electrical wirings and the likes, we must make sure that the people who are able to use that facility are secure. We are looking at it from the aspect of efficiency, that we're able to use the resources that we have in the planet efficiently for our own benefit and for the benefit of future generations, and also looking at the aspect of cost effectiveness in that we're able to do more with less energy that we have. So we're able to use less resources to be able to achieve more objectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed, Bwana Nixon. Now, you're watching via Zoom, and possibly you have a question, you have a comment. I'd kindly request that you go to www.menti.com. And even for those who are in the room still, www.menti.com, and you question or your comment, please remember to include your name and possibly where you're watching us from. Now, so clearly there is a great importance in regards to our theme this year. I want to bring your attention to a story here, a Kenyan story, so that as we discuss, we realize we really want to move on from a theoretical perspective to really ground practical things that we can start working on. And I'm really looking forward to listening to what Dr. Jane has to say so that we leave here so challenged. This is a story, and of course we are all aware of what happens in Dandora. This is a gentleman, wakes up every single day at 5 a.m.
I don't even. But it's not possible. I sort the trash because I'm trying to earn. wife and child now. And they're waiting for me to come back with milk or bread in the evening. They'll complain if I come home empty-handed. Sometimes I might be lucky and find some packed meat and chips here. And that would be lunch for today, just like that. Some might think this is not a good job. If they see me looking as dirty as I am now, they might look down on me. But I know what I'm getting out of it. You can find food here. There's meat. Do you see these people around here? They depend on us. They're mainly here because of meat. Maybe they live somewhere nearby and they haven't had anything to eat yet today.
You get the story, you get the drift. So we're talking about pollution, we're talking about setting standards. We have a reality on the ground. There are people who are also benefiting from the same. Let me come to you, engineer. When we're talking about standards, how has KEBS been in terms of engaging the people on the ground so that they really understand what is happening?
As KEBS, we've opened up our standardization activities to the general public, where we are now recruiting all the stakeholders who are interested, and specifically getting down to the very small groups. We are working with the micro and small enterprises, and we are encouraging them to join various technical committees that address issues related to standards. And doing so, we are looking at three aspects. We are looking at performance requirements. We also look at environment protection and also safety as well as health of those standards. Therefore, without involving those people, it is difficult for us to get the real requirements that capture their needs and the needs of their customers. Therefore, we're engaging various small groups, whether organized or individuals, but we've opened up the process of standardization. Now it's open. Anybody interested and has a contribution to make is welcome to apply online. And so far, for the last 6 months, we've recruited over 3,000 members of various technical committees within KEBS.
All right, thank you so much. So clear enough. And of course, we'll be coming back to get more. I want to go back to Dr. Edewa. Dr. Edewa, and I really want to appreciate, earlier on, we were meant to hear from Dr. Patrick Musije. And there is the concept of sustainable consumption and production. And this is a whole process that started back in 2003 in Marrakesh. And I'm wondering, it's been 17 years. What tangible developments have we experienced, and how does that connect to protecting our planet?
Thank you very much. Sustainable production and consumption is one of the SDGs that we have, and is focusing on really looking at the supply chains, and within the supply chains, developing a conscious thinking all the time about the sustainability of that supply chain at every stage of it. For example, at the farm level, we'll be looking at how sustainable is it to produce within that setup in terms of the environment itself, the social aspects of the people who produce, and of course the economics, of whether they have access to any resources and making profits out of it. Now, that calls for preservation of our natural resources and judicious use of them, such that they are not depleted, because once the resources are depleted, then you are not able to produce again. And this becomes then not sustainable to the future. Now, the same concept then applies in the subsequent stages of the supply chain, including in industrial processes like manufacturing. The raw materials, the inputs that you use for that, the resources like water, energy, How efficient are they? How efficient are they? If the the resources being used for this purpose for production are not, you're not focusing on to the efficiency part of it. I mean, is it expensive energy? And is the technology that you use very expensive now for the energy consumption? How much water are you using in the system? Are we able to conserve and recycle the same water and use it again rather than wasting it to go away? Now, this is the concept to talk about the efficient use of resources. But then the returns out of it, that we should be able to plow back continuously and ensure that they are available, which means calling for a shift from those resources which can be depleted to natural resources which can be used and reused. Those renewable resources like clean energies, solar, wind energies, and so forth. So this concept has been there for a long time. Sadly, it is not been well embraced. And you walk around and you see on farms and you see, oh, our farms can no longer sustain crop production. Or you see animal production leading to methane, gas production, global warming effect. You see indiscriminate cutting of natural resources like forest everywhere, and for use on purposes which could actually become smarter in, like a wood fuel. And so all these aspects together then lead to a bigger problem. And that's why we say that today we have to wake up. We have to do things differently. We have to embrace standards as not as something new, but as a lifestyle. It has to be a lifestyle. It has to be from start to the end that this is a conscious thinking that what I'm using will not be there permanently if I don't do it the proper way. Thank you.
Sure. Dr. Hari, and of course, maybe now, Jane, you can come in. There seems to be a clear understanding that we must create, the systems are there. From this conversation, it seems like we understand, but the problem is there, and looks like there's a part of society that is supposed to do something, and there's another part of society that is doing nothing, in fact, contributing to the destruction of the planet. Dr. Jane, you talked about this new century. What are the guidelines? How do we move forward to tell a different story?
Okay, just back forward is that you'll realize that what actually we've been relying on and what we still rely on are standards, linear standards, which were talked about by the ISO president, that is produce waste, treat it to this level and then discharge, or produce solid waste in the household, collect it, dispose it in dump sites, Dandora, or wherever. But you saw that's just waste transfer. And that just, moves waste from one point or one environmental medium to another. We don't have integrated standards that address issues of air, water, and land simultaneously, so that when an industry puts up a filter, a filter that filters the particulate matter, concentrates them, that industry is going to capture that in a bag and dispose them in Dandora. You saw that what happened. So what have you done actually? Orphan waste, call it like that. You know how, even businesses go and dispose of solid waste in some roadside, in some dark place, you know, you wake up in the morning and you find a heap of solid waste. So then we have to debunk the myth of the sufficiency of the linear standards that we have. So that's why, as a cleaner production center, we've been working for the last 20 years with industries looking at going beyond compliance. Going beyond compliance, because even the standards themselves, they give limits, but even what is in that standard, if it is like now for water, 50 milligrams per liter chemical oxygen demand. What is that 50 milligrams per liter for a metal electroplating company? That is raw material or whatever metal in the waste, in the water, which is going into the environment. Now, what happens with this kind of standards? If you have several industries like this in a given locality, each generating that minimum standard, cumulatively what happens? They get to the rivers, and the rivers, their assimilative capacity gets exceeded. So are we helped? So then we start questioning ourselves, what do we need to do? There's not the concept of circular economy. That is, waste is a raw material in the wrong place. How do we tweak these standards so that we are able to look beyond compliance and capture as much as possible of that which is in that standard so that it can be used, you know, circulate within the economy, create jobs, create new enterprise, waste-based enterprises, waste economy. We develop a waste economy. That's what's happening in Europe with the resource-efficient Europe policy directive. You saw what happened there in Dandora, which it's a time we stop celebrating counties by how much waste have they been able to collect and taken to the dump site, because that landfill was like a grave. We do not have any more graves for waste. That waste, what they were sorting, there's a value in it. What does that mean? Can we have a standard of system of waste collection which intercepts this waste at a point where this waste now can be procured by the industries? If we embrace the standard of source segregation of waste, organic waste, metallic waste, glass, etc. So we have transfer stations where this waste is procured by the industries in Ruaraka to use. What would we have succeeded to do? We would have succeeded to create decent jobs, to green decent, you know, to green jobs, so that the man you saw there is actually, yes, dealing with waste, but waste which is clean at the transfer station. So therefore, the challenge for us as Kenya Bureau of Standards, can we come with standards for secondary raw materials? Secondary raw materials which are going to support recycling. Secondary standard for products from recycled materials, you know, things like that. So that we find that now we move, or we enjoy the kind of standards we have together with voluntary, innovative standards which support green innovations, green jobs, green products, green processes. That's what we lack. So that if you look at our regulations right now, we do not have what we call a regulatory cure to support voluntary and green innovations, so that now we begin to celebrate counties and institutions that do landfill diversion of waste. We support industries that prevent pollution at source, you know, things like that. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much indeed. And of course, remember, you have an opportunity to send in your questions. Just check on your screen. On the screen, if you're not there already, just go to www.menti.com. The code is 4493869. We want to get your comments and, of course, your questions. Somebody says here, congratulations, Kebs, for celebrating this important day in style. The panelists are really suited for the event. Another one says, protecting the planet with standards. There are questions here, but before we move on to that question, I really want to talk to Ibra. There was a news item And I was really concerned because you were coming up with the regulation that was really going to create, and it has already created, safety in our country. But unfortunately, the number of people who know or who knew about it was very surprising. This is so basically, these are Kenyans saying we have no idea. Of course, some are saying yes. And towards the end, you will hear them say, you know what, we don't think it will help at all. But if we get down to the nitty-gritties of the law, there is a great deal of good. So, Bwana Nixon, I'd really want you to bring in the idea of what is it that you are really doing on the ground, and how have you managed to connect with the people so that they walk together with you?
Okay, thank you for that question and the aspect of LPG, because LPG is one of the initiatives that we are doing to promote clean cooking, and therefore trying to reduce the emissions that are going into the environment. In addition to the regulation itself, we are looking at the aspect, in the regulation itself, we are looking at the aspect of standards, that the operators are able to comply with the required standards to ensure that there is safety of the users of the LPG. And the way you're asking, how do we do awareness? We do communicate. We have quite a number of channels through stakeholder engagement forums that we do organize. We also do this through our social media platforms, among other avenues like use of media. We have had infomercials that try to highlight some of these aspects of safety. In addition to the LPG standard, LPG regulation and that we're having and standards, we also have standards that protect the end user in terms of the electric appliances that they use. I think you heard from the DG's remarks that were read, we're talking about minimum energy performance standards for key end user electric appliances, where we have a clear correlation between energy efficiency and the quality of the product that we are using. And through this regulation, we have been able to enhance the use of energy efficient products in the country, in addition to blocking the use of used products like importation of used refrigerators into the country that then do contribute towards the solid waste that we see to the dump sites like Dandora.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. And this is really a challenge to all the viewers. If you're watching via Zoom or Facebook and you're here, it's important, if we're talking about protecting the planet, we must be aware of the regulations. We must know about the standards that are there so that we are all working, not just a set of people somewhere working on our behalf. We also must work. Right now, very quickly, just to look at some of the questions that are coming in. Remember, you can send in your question. Just go to www.menti.com. That's menti.com. And the code is 449386 and we'll be able to capture your question. Now, looking at some of them here, somebody says, ISO has standards on water and air quality, which KEBS has adopted, but the challenge is the implementation institutions. I agree, waste is a problem, needs to be addressed, and possibly, Dr. Zakaria, maybe you can respond to the place of the gaps that we have. Yes, we have the standards, but unfortunately, we are not looking at 100% implementation. What is happening with KEBS in terms of making sure that we have the practical side of the standards that we already have?
Thank you. Thank you. As I mentioned, as KEBS, we develop the standard through stakeholders, and therefore these stakeholders from the word go, they're involved in the formulation of the standards because they understand what the industry requires and what the expectations of the customers. Having developed through standard through that process, it is our intention that when it comes to implementation, it is a smooth transition, because those people who are also involved in the implementation of the standards are aware that these standards are coming up. And once we've developed these standards, we've also created forums for awareness creation to the relevant users of these standards to understand that standards have been developed, and we are now moving to the next phase of implementation. We create awareness on how those standards will affect their products at the end of the day. Therefore, there is challenges has been mentioned of implementation because of capacity again, but the way we've opened up the process of standards development, our intention is to see that there's smooth implementations, because we are working together with the regulators, we're working with EPRA, we're working with NEMA, we are working with the National Transport and Safety Authority together. Therefore, immediately the standards are developed, then they pick up for implementation. And we are going to see more enforcement of these standards and implementation at the end of the day for us to protect the planet.
Thank you so much. Another question here. Dr. Dewa, maybe you can. This is Priyan Pindoria, watching us from Facebook Live. COVID-19 has highlighted several global issues. A massive one highlighted is how laws in some countries are geared against particular ethnicities. How can we apply standards to laws to ensure they are fair? It's basically equality in the engagement of setting standards and the implementation of the same.
Yeah, that's a very important question. Now, while many standards are voluntary in nature, standards that pertain to implementation of environmental aspects in most cases are meant to be policy tools. Tools that implement environmental laws, which means that we must begin with policies in the country, and the country having an overall policy on environment will then be able to assess what are the important areas that need to be addressed. And they only use standards as a tool, a policy implementation tool, which means that they have mechanisms beyond just developing the standard and having them on the shelves. In line with COVID-19, you see that countries put a lot of restrictions on importation of different forms of PPE, for example, masks or any other protective gear that was supposed to be used, medicaments. There were restrictions, but there are also restrictions on entry into other countries of specific person who had not been tested against the COVID-19 if there were any positive cases. Now, in this regard, environmental laws should be seen as one of the major issues in technical regulations. In fact, technical regulations are meant to address two key things: health and safety on one hand, and environmental protection on the other. So any regulation that comes out and is technical must actually focus on those two areas: health and safety, or protecting the environment. And which includes also, for our case in COVID-19, on the type of PPE to be imported, how this moves into the countries. Do we have standards that they then approve their use? And how do you dispose of the use of PPE? We have currently a big problem in terms of disposal of this PPE. These standards themselves have to do that. So if countries apply laws that are risk-based, that focus on the risk, the environment, and come up with the clear policy directions and regulations that focus on that, then standards should be used as a tool only to implement that, and there shall be no discrimination of, where is it coming from? It's about the standard. You either meet it or you don't meet it.
Yeah. Standards, not the person, not the people, not the ethnicity. It's about standards. We want to close because of time, and I see several comments and questions are coming in. Somebody says, maybe this is for the panelists, you can pick one that you can respond to as you also prepare your final remarks. And I'd also request that the person giving us our vote of thanks from KIBS, please be ready once the panelists are done. Somebody says here, just wondering, how can we use standards to improve results or delivery of environmental experts? Another one says here, this is Bernard Nguyo. SMEs are characterized by use of inefficient, second-hand machineries in production. What strategies does the Clean Production Center have to offer support to SMEs to adopt standards that protect environments? All right, another person says here, how is the culture of planet Earth conservation or protection inculcated in our school or education system? So those are some of the questions coming in. So as you prepare for your final remarks, please consider that. We'll start with Dr. Jane.
Okay, first, to answer the question that has been asked there about the strategies to help small and medium enterprises, that's exactly what we do. We have strategies where we provide information, we train them on actually pollution prevention, because the first line of attack is prevent pollution where you can prevent it, and then recycle and treat where you can. So what we do after we inform them and we train them, the next thing is to audit their production processes. Whatever process they're using, we look at what kind of technologies are they using, where is waste being generated and why is it being generated? And then from there, we propose options that they can put in place to be able to prevent the pollution and to be able to capture and recycle that. So in most cases, it's either they implement a newer technology or just a technique. And then you find also that actually 30% of the pollution that is generated by these industries is non-technical. So you find it's related to skills of the workers and also data capture and recording, so that informs their decision-making and improvement. That's a program we have. And they're welcome to visit our website and to be able to subscribe for that program so that they can be assisted. So lastly, now with standards, you said that I should also make my...
Yes, so our take home.
Yeah. The take home here is that we have standards, we have current standards, but as a country, we need to expand the scope of the environmental governance tools to include voluntary environmental management tools that give the regulated community, the businesses, room to innovate and to adopt greener technologies and techniques that prevent the generation of pollution, so that they do not have to worry so much with what does the standard require, knowing fully well that even the limits which are in those standards, it's still part of your raw material, intermediate material, or product in the wrong place.
Wow, thank you so much. A big round of applause to Dr. Jane. Asante sana, thank you so much. Bwana Nixon.
I think I would tackle the question on biogas, where someone is asking if there are standards for biogas. Indeed, they do exist. Maybe you could check from the KEBS web store, the standards that are touching on commercial biogas in Kenya. And also in terms of strategies, currently we are doing a bioenergy strategy that includes aspects to do with the promotion of biogas as a form of fuel in the country. So in my closing remarks, personally, I would look at it from all of us in terms of how we look at standards. And the question is, when you go to use a simple example, when you're going to purchase a product, how frequently do you think about standards? And how do you think those standards do affect the planet? For example, if you're going to buy, we are talking about, as a regulator, the electrical appliances, where we are labeling them with labels to show the energy performance. When you go to buy that product, do you think about the price, or do you think about the standard and the lifetime of that product? When you're going to buy, refill your cylinder, are you thinking about the quality of the gas that you're getting, or are you thinking about the price? Because then in that case, you will become our ambassador. You will go out there, check that you're buying, you're filling your cylinder from a reliable supplier who will give you documentation, who has validated the safety of the cylinder that you are using, so that we reduce the number of accidents, and we reduce the players in the black market. Because if we rely, for example, on KEBS or on EPRA or on NEMA to enforce 100% of the standards, then that becomes a challenge. So we as the end users then have to think about standards when you're carrying on our daily activities. So the same way we have just said, if you're buying a fridge, check that it has the labels, and the labels do indicate the efficiency of the product. And such products have a longer lifetime. So it might look like it's a bit expensive today, but when you look at the longevity of the product, then you're able to get the value for money, because you'll be paying less for energy. In the long run, we'll be using less resources within our planet to supply you with that energy, and in that we'll be saving the planet for the future generations. Thank you.
Excellent. A big round of applause to one Nicholas. It's not just about the price, it's about the planet. Dr. Dewa, your take home.
Yeah, my take home is, let me speak for my organization point of view. Trademark East Africa supports the governments and private sector to see how these standards or regulations can be effectively implemented. For governments, it's important that there should be a shift from the traditional laws that are not risk-based to a more risk-based approach to assessment of environmental risks at every step, and put in place the right policies and regulations to address that, and to, of course, to involve stakeholders in all these arrangements, and to have institutions with persons or individuals that have the capability to guide and also to ensure that these are enforced. From the private sector point of view, it's important also that we look at it generally in terms of voluntary approaches to implementing the right processes. We should be looking at a conscious thinking about how to do it better, to perform better in terms of environmental management in order to protect the earth. So it's going beyond standards, and we should always see standards as a mechanism to help us set up our system. But we need to aim higher and higher and higher by having private voluntary schemes, or even some third-party assurance systems without waiting for government to come in. Lastly, it's about cooperation. International cooperation, at the regional level or national level. How do partners, how do different players interact? Information sharing, sharing of best practices, and how do experts themselves, find their own way to transfer or give information that will help everyone. This is a very important aspect, cooperation, including the man on the street. How do you communicate to the people on the street that they should not just throw out plastics, throw out stuff on the highway? They are driving and you see them just dumping things. How do we communicate that? It requires clear cooperation among all actors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Cooperation, cooperation, cooperation from the highest levels to the levels. There must be cooperation. Engineer.
As I conclude, we calculate environment standards into our education system. And as a standards body, we've created specific technical committees that deal with education standards. And in doing so, we've invited various stakeholders in the education sector to be involved in standardization development. And we are taking this one step further under the various regulatory agencies that govern the education systems in terms of curriculum development, that when they're developing their curriculum, they consider incorporation of aspects of standards and environmental standards from the basis of those education standards in that system. Therefore, we're working with them, and as the curricula are being revised at various levels at primary schools, technical institutions, as well as universities, and then these issues will be incorporated in the education system so that learners as they continue going through the education system, they're aware of the standards that actually protect the planet. And this will have a great impact when it comes to final implementation in terms of when you get out of the education system, then you want to start production, you are aware of the standards that are applicable to particular systems and services that you are offering. My final thoughts on this one is that as we develop standards across the sectors, I want to mention that virtually all standards protect the planet in one way or another. We want to look at how will our products at the end of the day be either reduced, recycled, and in doing so, we want to look at the entire life cycle so that when you are developing standards, you look at the environmental impact at each and every stage, from life to death of the product. That's very important. And moving forward, we're also calling upon stakeholders to come up and be involved in this process of standardization, because it's a stakeholder-led process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause to all our panelists, and thank you so much for your questions. You're watching via Zoom, Facebook Live. We are coming to the close of today's celebrations, but of course we continue on with the theme. I want to close with this rather not very gentle story about our actions, and hopefully we can translate the results of our actions into something greater that we can celebrate in the future. Eyes on the screen. You see, nature started like this. The birds are flying. It's a beautiful world for them. They have a home. The planet is their home. They, for many years, centuries, have survived, thrived. This is home for them. The beauty of nature in the most exquisite manner. Then comes human beings. This is the reality in many places. Birds found dead, and inside you find plastics. And every single day, though we may not see them today, it's actually happening. And we may say, well, I'm very far from this reality. No. We are all in this together. They need us to change our ways. And we already have a platform, the standards that are already there. Change this story. We can change this story so that one day, once again, nature will thrive. And hopefully, if they had a way of telling their story, they will say, wow, once again, we've seen the bright, wonderful days. It will start with you and I. You're watching via Zoom, watching via Facebook Live. Let us not make it a talk. Right now, wherever you are, what can you do after COVID? We have an opportunity to make a difference. Let us make it. We're still alive. Let us make it. Let our lives count, even as we celebrate World Standards Day. A big round of applause to the panelists. Thank you so much indeed for being part of the conversation. And very quickly, for our vote of thanks, please ask you to put your hands together for Mr. Nyangeshi from KEBS. Karibu sana.
All right, good afternoon. My task is very simple. It's just to return a vote of thanks to those who've taken part to making this day a great success.
I won't make it long since I'm the one between now and your what? And your lunch. So on behalf of CAPES management and the entire World Standards Day Organizing Committee, and of course on my own behalf as a member of that committee, wish to extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers, right from the ISO president, who was the keynote speaker, who left us with some words of wisdom through the challenges that he bestowed on government agencies, on industry, and on all of us in ensuring that we achieve sustainable development. To the CS, through the PS, her words and her challenges to KEBS, and the reflections that they gave us as KEBS, that we turned the pressure that we were faced with during this COVID period, the pressure that saw us deliver on a number of standards, publicly available specifications, which were developed within a very short time. And that the advice was that we turn that pressure into what? Into the norm, and that we are able to come up with standards at a faster rate. Obviously, we all know that technology is normally advancing faster than standardization. So for us to catch up, we need to take that pressure as the norm. Further, a big thank you to all those also who took time to get off their busy schedule and join us virtually for the last maybe, how many hours, Wakazi, was that? About 4 hours or so. That's a lot of time. For those who've been with us all that time, thank you very much for making this day a success as well. Of course, I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to our panelists who have handled the various questions professionally. And we've received a number of thumbs up from the various listeners. And one was particularly interesting, that they're saying that the level of organization coming from a government agency, that this is commendable. So thank you. And that leads me to actually the crew and all the members, our moderator, MC, and his crew, that have ensured that this session has progressed flawlessly. So thank you very much, Mwakazi, and your group. Our sincere thanks to the management of BOMA Services also for providing us with an enabling environment to ensure that we've successfully concluded our day's celebrations. Of course, there is one last business of lunch. So I'm sure, looking at the level of organization and everything, that we shall enjoy our lunch. So to the various suppliers and vendors who we've dealt with during this period, and some of them who had to do certain things within very tight timelines, thank you very much for doing that. I think if there are any other people forgotten, generally I wish to thank everybody who's taken part in today's celebrations. They did not start today. It's been a number of weeks. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, approvals needed, and so on. So to all those, thank you very much. And I wish you all the best and hope to see you again next year for another World Standards Day celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much indeed. We've come to the end. Asanteni sana. God bless you. God bless Africa. God bless Kenya. All the best as we protect the planet with standards. Thank you.